You can start it.
All right. Hey, what's up, guys? So, welcome everyone to Books and Bros, episode one,
Woo!
with myself, Chris, and my brother, Matthew.
Matt Menchaca.
Matt Menchaca. Yeah, we just decided to. I've been wanting. We're talking. Matt, let's. I guess we'll go into how it started, right? Or like
Yeah,
why we're doing this.
for sure.
Matt's a prolific YouTuber here. He is already go check out his channel, Davidic. And so if you have any interest in oh man, brain parting, dude.
League of Legends.
League of
Yeah.
Legends. There you go. League of Legends and or the League of Legends card game. Thing.
Yeah, it's a mainly League of Legends, but I'll throw a video on the card game Legends of Runeterra. I'll sprinkle a bit of other stuff every now and then.
Perfect. Yeah. So Matt's been doing that for some time, and I've been wanting to just start dabbling and kind of scratch the creative itch. And we were talking about doing podcasts, and I thought it would be a good idea to kind of always wanted to start a podcast just with friends, just as an opportunity to have conversations and have a record of just get to know your friends a little bit better. And hey, if maybe it turns into something bigger in the future, but for the moment, just just keep it nice, casual, and do something. And so when I was visiting home for Thanksgiving, we were talking, and Matt has been reading a ton. He's been on a reading kick, and so I suggested the book Red Rising. It's a book that I have read a while ago, and thought that he would really like it. And so you read it, Matt, and you enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think I can take it a bit from here. Kind of getting into the book Red Rising. So like number one for me, book recommendation from the bro. I'm like, okay, I'll read it. And then so I went and bought the book. Here it is in all its glory. And the first thing that I read right here, the very first thing, this first one at the top, says Ender, Katniss, and now Darrow. Pierce Brown's empire-crushing debut is a sprawling vision. So like Chris said, I've been on a reading kick, and I read Ender's Game. I read The Hunger's Game. And so so I'm like, okay, like I read these books this year. Let's get into it. And then actually starting the story, the first words are, I would have lived in peace, but my enemies brought me war. So once I said that, I was like, all right, like buckle in, I'm strapped in, like let's take this ride to the very end. And I was like fully committed basically from those first two things.
And what about that, Matt? Why does that quote, why did that get your attention so much?
I'm a big fan of peace, but I'm also a big fan of defeating my enemies. And how do you do that? The art of war.
There you go. Love it. So we were talking about it, and we're like, you know what, let's do a podcast and about this book in specific, and at least starting off. And so episode one, we're gonna try and cover the book. We'll see how far we get into Red Rising, and then maybe episode two we go through the next book or some other book. So just wanted to chat, get our thoughts on what we liked, didn't like about the book. Go from there. So I guess starting off, we'll probably give an idea of what the book is, really broad plot line, and then we'll go into details and kind of the events that happen in the book and our thoughts on them as we talk. You want to handle that, Matt, or me?
So I could just start like a general summary of the book.
Super quick. Yep.
Yeah. So basically, it's a futuristic book, and we are gonna direct this towards people who've read it. So we are gonna spoiler. Just a disclaimer there. But in a broad sense, it's a futuristic book, and it's about the main character Darrow, who later becomes known as the Reaper, and we've colonized the solar system. So we have all the solar system is inhabited
People are
humanity.
on Saturn, people are on Jupiter, people are on the moons, and kind of everything in between our solar system.
Yep, yep. And so it's one of the major themes is kind of fighting oppression. Like a common term in the book is break the chains. And the way this is demonstrated is Darrow is a Martian and he's a color red. So he starts off as a red, and those are kind of the like absolute bottom of society. And then there's reds, there's golds, which is at the top. Golds are at the top. They're physically the most like dominating race, and they're just the ruling class of the society. So the main idea behind the book and the series is that the lower class are being oppressed by the upper class, and it's about creating equality at the end of the day, a better world than what they have now.
Yeah, and fighting against the system that wants to keep all of these different castes, like levels, right?
Mm-hmm,
These different
mm-hmm.
hierarchies in place. So just like expounding on that a little bit, like you've got, yeah, like Matt said, reds at the bottom, golds at the top, and you've got pinks who are like the pleasure class.
Yeah,
They're meant to serve golds, right? And
yeah, they are
they're
prostitutes.
they're
They
the
are.
hookers and the
Yeah,
strippers
yeah, huggers and strippers.
of the world, of this world. And so you've got grays that are like a warrior kind of class. You got silvers that are just under the golds.
Just quick, like the Greys are kind of like the police force.
Yeah.
They're kind of like the like martial like police force, like for the other colors, not for the golds, but for the other ones.
Yep. Here's so just there's like a little quote. So whites arbitrate justice and push their philosophy. So like the almost religious class.
Yeah, they're the like priests.
Yep. Yep. We went through pinks. The silvers count and manipulate currency and logistics. Yellows study medicine and sciences. Greens are develop technology, and blues navigate the stars. They're like the when you have an armada and a ship, you have a bunch of blues that are running it. So yeah, there's more. We'll go through them as kind of it makes sense to talk about the different classes, but humans have evolved into these different colors by I think just by chance, but also by force and like by as through technology. So like the golds are, artificially just much bigger, much stronger. They're beautiful, right? And so that's kind of like the system that we're talking about here,
Yep.
or that's
Real
set
quick.
in this world.
Yeah, for sure. Real quick question: if you could be a color, which one would you be?
Oh, gold, of course, 1,000,000%. Yeah. Yeah.
All
Why
right,
would I
second,
not want to be a
then.
gold?
Okay, all right, fine. All right, fine.
Why?
Second.
What would you want to be?
I'm on that silver status. I need that coin.
Oh,
Give me that coin.
oh, okay, I see. That makes sense. Yeah, I can see that. There's not in this book, but in the next book, we get some prominent silvers that you kind of learn about. So it's I totally get that. And agree. But it's like, hey, what's good? Power. Power is the real currency, Matt, in this
Oh, yeah,
in this world. That's what we want, right?
that's true.
If you have all the money in the world but no power, then what's the point?
True.
I say that, and it's jokingly, but okay. So we're across the solar system. We've got a bunch of colors. Gold's
I think,
rule. What
yeah,
else? What else do we need to talk about here?
I think
Kind of setting the
maybe,
scene.
yeah, I think that's like a good broad sense. I think now we can kind of go into the parts of the book.
What the actual story is about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Cool. So I guess I'll kind of kick this off real quick and talk about the main points. So main story is of a red, like we said. His name is Darrow, right? So red is and he's on Mars. And so they are the working class, right? They are the laborers of this world. And so Darrow finds himself, he's on Mars, but he's below the surface in mines. And so these reds they are being told that, they are mining helium-3 so that they can eventually terraform Mars and go up to the surface, but the surface isn't livable at the moment. So these people, and the Reds are much smaller, right? Much smaller people, and these Reds in particular in mines, so no sunlight, right? So you can, I don't know, I imagine
They're
some
completely
like,
underground. They're
yeah,
completely underground.
completely underground, but like I think pale, but since they're red, they're like rust colored, right? Just like dirty rust color is the idea that I get in my head. And so uh they're mining for this helium-3, and Darrow's a hell diver. And so the hell diver are like the badasses of these miners, right? So he is literally pilot of this drill, and it's almost like they envision a hand that goes down into the veins and into these deep mines to extract this helium. But it's like one of the most dangerous jobs. It is the job most direct in determining like how much helium or how
Mm-hmm.
much is actually extracted. And so they talk a lot about like the dexterity. So like he's inside this thing, like in the hand, and like he's got drill bits and stuff that's moving. And he's controlling everything with his hand, but they talk a lot about like they need to be super fast.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's all of the how they react to different things as they're drilling. So that's kind of like a
Yeah, it's the way I think about it is kind of like a reverse quarterback in football, where the hell diver is like the one that goes deep into the tunnel. So like you have like
everyone else
that
is above him looking
everyone else
down.
is above. Exactly. Everyone else is above, like, but the hell diver is the one that has to, like, or kind of like geese, kind of like a geese formation, where like you have the one
Yeah.
in the front and then everyone else is behind.
Yeah.
But it's the most dangerous because there's like pockets of gas that you can hit. There's like snakes, they call them pit vipers. So like it's the hell diver is like the most important, but also the most dangerous and vulnerable like spot in that whole formation of drillers.
Yep. And literally, I mean, I think they talk about in the book, how short their lifespan is, because if you're a hell diver, right, one mistake, it gets you killed. And so they don't
Mm-hmm.
live to be very long. And so yeah,
Yeah,
this is him. Go ahead.
yeah, and I just want to say in part one, like the book basically, part one is Slave, by the way. It's the first 49 pages of the book. Like the first major plot point that happens is he, instead of waiting for, like, they needed some sort of backup or some sort of assistance. It was like a hairy situation to continue drilling. But he makes the decision to do the risky thing and continue drilling. He almost has to cut off his leg. Like that's basically the first thing that happens is his leg gets stuck and then he almost needs to cut it off.
Yeah. Yeah. And so there's different like communities, right, of Reds, and they're all kind of pit against each other. So the community that mines the most gets this prize at the end of, I don't know, whatever, however long however
They
often they
might do it
do the
by a year.
prize. Is it yearly?
I,
Okay.
I
Um, yeah. Whatever the duration is, they get a prize, the laurel, and it's, yeah, just given to whoever produces the most, and this is highly dependent on the hell divers of each of the communities. And so one of the book starts off with they've never his community, the what is it, Matt? What are they called?
Lycos.
Like, yeah, Lycos, but what, Gamma? They're like Gamma,
They are
Lambda
yeah,
something.
Lambda of
Lambda.
Lycos. You're right. You're right.
Yeah. And so, but they've never won it, and it's always like a
Gamma gets it.
name. Yeah, Gamma will always get it, and so he's just really tired of it, and he thinks by doing this, they've got like levels they're monitoring. They know how much helium-3 they've mined, and so he thinks that he's done enough with this maneuver, right, that put him in at risk, and like he had to almost cut his arm. He did it so they could win the laurel, and the laurel is essentially everyone in the community. They get like a ton of food. There's a celebration, right, and if you don't win it, nothing happens, and you kind of just have to look over and see the other
You
community.
kick
Just
rocks.
yeah,
You kick
just
rocks.
mhm. And so these are very poor people to begin with. All they have, this is one of the other things that they don't have much to live for, right? They're just working.
Hmm.
Um, and so, they I think we'll get into it in a little bit after. And maybe you're right, Matt. Maybe we just do part one. We'll see. We'll see how much we want to talk here. Uh, but yeah, so it turns out that he thinks he's gonna win. He thinks he did enough to win, and they don't.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of one of the starting things that sets him off onto this
Makes him a
path,
little
right?
mad, huh?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Makes him mad, makes EO mad, makes his brother, like everybody's mad.
hmm Yeah, I mean, can you blame him, right? Because it's
No,
like, yo, I don't have anything, and here I am with this like carrot dangling over me. I think I did enough, and I didn't, right? Or like well, no, it's like he knows he did enough. He knows
everyone knows.
they should have
Everyone
won,
knows.
but
Hmm.
for whatever reason they don't. They don't end up winning the laurel.
Because it's rigged. It's rigged.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So what happens is
Trying to
Gam.
upset the status quo, and the
Mhm.
status quo maintains place. Sorry, good.
Yeah, no, good point there. And it's all just because the like everything's already been decided. They don't have any agency. There's no freedom.
Yeah.
At all. And that's one of well, we'll get into I have a quote for the next one, but yeah, that sums it up, is that they don't have it just shows how little agency that they actually have.
Yep. Yep. And so he's a young guy, right? The book tells us how young he is. I think he's like 16 or
16
something.
or 17. I think they're
Um,
16.
yeah, he is but what he does have, right, is he's married to this girl named Io. And the book describes her as like the love of his life, right? And it describes times before they got married, and it's just like he is his sole purpose, right? This is why he risks his life. She is why he risks his life. She is every day, right? She is
Hmm.
why he wants to bring the laurel,
Yeah, yeah.
and
That
for her and his family.
yeah, that's one thing I wanted to say is when you were talking about how yeah, he like was doing that risky maneuver. I was like, he has a girl to impress as well. And that's a big that's a big motivator, at least from my experience.
Yes, yeah, 100%, man. I always think, yeah, I mean, yeah, being, real talk. Like I always think that, like, if you have a fan, like, what better motivation than, yeah, like a girlfriend, a wife, someone that you just love so much, right? And then I extrapolate that to family,
Yep, yep,
children, right?
yep.
Someone that you need to provide for and be responsible for. Sometimes it's like, man, I almost wish that had that, you could have that to act as motivation to work harder or to, become more successful, right? Because if it's just you, it's a little difficult, it's not as easy. I think
Yeah,
it's an
absolutely.
excuse, but it's not as easy. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I
Um,
agree with that
yeah.
100%.
Yeah. All right. So what happens next?
All right, so they don't win the laurel. And again, this is still part 1 of the book Slave. So chapter 4 is called The Gift. And basically and one thing I really liked about this part of the book is that like it talks there's a couple sentences where it talks about his fists getting white and how Io is good at preventing him from getting his fists white, because that's a very common theme in throughout the series, is that when Daryl gets mad, he'll clench his fists and they'll turn white. But in this very first scene, when he doesn't win the laurel, it said he's like, Io won't let my fist get white. She knows how to drain the rage before it gets to that point, before his fists actually get white. So to do that, she's like, hey, let's go dance, blah, blah, blah. They start dancing at the Laurel and everything. And then she takes her to a little secret spot to get her mind off the Laurel. So
Hey, before we get to that, talk about the
yeah.
dancing. The dancing. 'Cause
Yeah.
the dancing is an important thing.
Okay. Go for it.
Yeah. They the Reds are like a dancing people. They talk about the types of people, each of the colors are, and the Reds are like very family is very important, right?
Mm-hmm.
Dance is very important. And so it's almost like we learn later on that, so Darrow's father teaches him how to dance,
Mm-hmm.
and that translates to his like fighting skills later on in future books. I think
Yeah,
in this one
and
too, I think.
real quick, his father gets hanged for performing a forbidden dance.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. So I mean, these guys are the Reds are just so monitored and controlled, and it's like the Golds, the ruling class. I think even in like today's society, it's like they want to stifle everything, right? Stifle hope, stifle joy. Because if you don't, if you have a people that don't have anything to live for, right? Or like don't have a hope of something better, then it's that much easier to just maintain the status quo. It's that much easier to just keep them down and kind of keep them doing your bidding, right? Just working tirelessly day in and day out, which is what the Reds are doing here. And so yeah, like dancing is almost forbidden. Is all dance forbidden, Matt, or is it just certain
No,
ones?
no. It's just there's the forbidden dance, and then there's the forbidden song that we'll get into. But that's pretty much like all the Reds have going for them is that they can drink and dance. Like
Yeah.
like that's pretty much yeah,
Yeah, and I mean I think that's like
and sing.
just what?
Drink and dance and sing.
Drink and dance and sing. Yeah. What else can you do, right? When you have
Yeah.
it's not like if you work harder, you're going to become more successful. It's not like if you work harder, you're going to get more money. It's not like you can raise your level by working harder, right? You can't, it's like, I'm just here. No matter how hard I work, no matter what I do, right? I will always be here. And so I think people, when that's the case, they put their efforts into other things like singing, like dancing, the arts, right? Like we talked about this before. I mentioned it, and it's like I visited Cuba before, and
Hmm.
Cuba's communist country, right? And so the people who live in Cuba, it's like you either need to like leave Cuba, right? Or
Hmm.
if you're there, if you have no way of leaving, again, it's you don't it's very much that idea where like I'm just here and I have nothing, I don't own anything, right? I don't have this freedom to work harder or to try and elevate my status. And so I think there's like there's this feeling that I get with like Cuban dance, like Cuban salsa specifically, Cuban music specifically. There's a different kind of energy to it that you can just feel. And there's like this, it's this, yeah, it's more energetic, but it's almost like I want to like break free, right? Like I
Break the
need to
chains.
get this off my chest. Yeah, break the chains. Yeah. And yeah, I think it's a super like that truthfully happens in in our world, in our societies in societies that are kind of oppressed that way. So
Yeah.
anyways,
Yeah, and exactly like you're saying, if you could work harder, they would have got the laurel. Like they
should have. Yeah. Yeah. The system is rigged. Yeah. Yeah. It's like the system is rigged, right? Like no matter what I do, it's not gonna happen
yeah, yeah. And
for
so
me.
so what ends up happening, is it cool for me to move on or
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
okay. So yeah, so to stop Darrow from getting mad. She has a gift. And she actually tells Darrow that she has two gifts before they even go to the Laurel. And so one gift is the secret place that she found. So Io, she works in the Webbery. So they like apparently there's like some place where like a bunch of spiders are, and they get the web and they make silk from the web. So while she was doing her job, she discovers a tunnel that leads to the surface. So they go into the surface, and for the first time ever, Darrow and Io, Io must have already seen it because she's the one who discovers the place, but Darrow sees the sky for the first time. And I even wrote down the quote because it meant a lot to me. The sentence was, "Sky, once it was just a word." And that just really stood out to me. That quote is like, I can't even imagine like the sky being just a word to you. So that just meant a lot to me. And they discovered they're in a forest, so there's a lot of different colors. There's the vegetation, there's the trees, there's the wildlife.
Grass.
Go ahead.
Grass.
Yeah, grass. Yeah, grass. So basically they Darrow just sees a whole quite literally a whole new world that exists, and he gets exposed to. They get into an argument, and Io is telling Darrow that he needs to live for more, that Io's pushing the idea that they're not really pioneers, but they're instead slaves. And Darrow goes into what you're talking about, where Darrow's like, no, like I'm happy with the status quo. Like, I'm not a slave. I earn, I don't beg for things. I earn, what I have, blah, blah, blah. And, they get into an argument. And, one of the things that Io says is, death isn't empty like you say it is. Emptiness is life without freedom, Darrow. And, eventually,
the second part of that quote is really good too. Death
go
isn't
on.
empty.
Yeah. What do you think about the quote? Yeah.
Death isn't empty like you say it is. Emptiness is life without freedom, Darrow. Emptiness is living chained by fear of loss, of death.
Gotcha. Yeah, for sure. Anything what do you think about that quote?
Yeah. So that's one of the ones that stood out to me as well. And this idea of, right, it's not only like, death is something to fear. Death is something, it's not something that we should fear, right? It's going to happen. But like, we should also, like, a type of death is living an empty life, right? A type of death is like living, always fearful, right? That's not living. It's like, I mean, there's so many quotes, but it's this idea of like the unlived life, right? And if you in their case specifically, it's lack of freedom, right? Living without freedom. So one thing about Io that we know is that she's just like a dreamer, right? She's always thought, like, wanted more, thought there was more, right? And even though they live in this subterranean, in these mines where there's no access to the outside world, and they have this idea like where, you can't go to the surface, she finds this place, and she, like, this proof that there is more out there, right? That they are,
they're being told a lie.
Yeah. They're being lied to,
told
right?
a lie.
Yeah, exactly. So no, I love that quote, man. That's a good one.
Yeah, so they basically agree to disagree. And then they oh no, am I good?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, sorry.
I got you.
On my screen I froze for a sec. But yeah, then they get to knocking some boots on the surface.
Oh, I always pictured this. I don't know, maybe I need to reread the part, but I thought it was still subterranean, because they talk about, like,
It could be. Oh, you
I
know
think
what? You're
so.
probably right. You're probably right.
Yeah. I think it's like this. It's almost like a pit in the ground because it's
Okay.
like a dome. So you can see the sky, but like I always, yeah, at least I think there's like walls around it or something like that. Like it's
You're
still not
you're
quite on the surface, but you got a window to the surface.
Yeah, I think it might actually be the surface. I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know. But I do know for sure they say like the Greys use this. So yeah,
Yeah.
there it could be like a biome still underground, but
Yeah, it was
with
definitely covered. It was definitely covered. Like there's
okay.
they talk about
The
that.
part that makes me a bit confused is they see the sunset.
Mhm.
That's what makes me
Oh.
confused. Is they for sure see the sunset, and it talks about how he's crying when he sees the sunset. Like as they're walking out
Mm.
of the tunnel
Mhm.
before they run into the Greys. That's what happens next, by the way. uh, he like because I literally just read this like an hour ago. He sees the sunset, and as he's still walking outside of the tunnel, like tears are still streaming from like the happiness and joy of seeing or it was the sunrise. Sorry, it was the sunrise. They saw the
Right.
sunrise.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right, because they made love and then they're like sitting there for a good while.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Man, dude, can you imagine? Can you imagine that?
that'd be amazing.
Uh, well, yeah, what, the lovemaking or the watching the
But yeah, the
sunrise?
love making and then
Both.
watching the sunrise for the first time.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly that, right?
Yeah.
It's like, well, and just being in this, being like in another world, right? Where, all you know is rocks and darkness, and
Hmm.
the only light that you see is artificial, right? And then, yeah, man, just being into like looking at a tree for the first time, feeling grass under your feet for the first time. Yeah, seeing the sky, seeing a sunset, like freaking wild. Um, so so crazy, like to the point where would make you like enraged, right? Like why all of my people, everything I know has been a lie, right?
Hmm.
Because we've been told that this isn't, that we can't. There's no possibility of seeing the surface, not yet, right?
Hmm.
We're working so that future generations can see the surface. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, like trying to put yourself in his shoes in that moment.
Hmm.
So, anyways, and so okay, so they leave this place, and of course, like you mentioned, they run into some grays, because it's a forbidden place, right? It's not for them to be there, and so they get captured, um, and their punishment is like lashings, right? Lashings in front of everybody, right? In front of the entire
Yeah,
town.
yeah.
Yeah.
They basically call up the entire town. It's a public punishment.
Mhm. Yeah, and so Daryl goes first and takes his lashings, and then Io goes second,
Hmm.
and she starts to sing a song,
Well,
the forbidden song that you were talking about. Yeah.
the key thing that was weird, the key plot point here is that Nero Augustus happens to be visiting their colony. The Arch Governor of Mars happens to be there, and that's what sets up the everything. So that if Arch Governor Nero wasn't there, Io probably would have never sang the Forbidden Song.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
because she, but because the governor was there, that's what
You think
tipped
because it
her.
was super public and she was being made an example of, it's why she knew that and decided to sing?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And I think later on in the book it states that if the arch governor weren't like it just flat out, the narrator just flat out says that if the governor weren't there, Io wouldn't have been like motivated to like make a risky move or like or basically martyr herself to send a message for her people.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's how the plot progressed was that the arch governor just happened to be there, and so because she the Archgovernor is the head oppressor. He's the one. He's like Eo's number one wanted person. Like if Eo could take out somebody, it would be the Archgovernor. Like in Eo's eyes, he is the primary reason why all of this is happening, why her people are oppressed. So that's why in front of him, she decides to rebel and sing the Forbidden Song.
Yeah. And so, like we were saying before, it's like this is forbidden. And so she sings it the entire thing, right? And they decide to put her to death, right? So she goes from only getting a whipping and you're done to now, no, your punishment is death.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, they do it right then and there, right? It's
the next day. It's the next day.
Is it? Okay.
Like Nero, or it might be right then and there. I'm not sure. I honestly don't know, but pretty much, yeah, like right away. You're probably right. I think it is right then and there. Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah. And so, so here's Darrow, right, just having gotten his whipping, and then he sees Eo, and he sees her make a choice. Like this is that she knows full well what the punishment is, right? She knows full well what's going to happen by doing this, but she is so convicted of this idea that we're being lied to, and there's more to this life than what we've been told, and willing to to the point where she's willing to die for it. And so yeah, I mean, so she gets hanged, put to death by hanging. And I guess any details, Matt, that you want to talk about in that?
Yeah. One thing is they get to say last words to somebody. So the Eo's last words are actually to her sister. So Darrow, not only is she about to die, but her last words go to the sister. But I really like how the narrator says that Darrow doesn't understand, but to the very end, he's going to give her, the only thing he's going to give her is love. Yeah.
Yeah. And so she says her last words to her sister. We don't know what they are. Darrow doesn't know what she told her. And then they hang her. And so because it's Mars, the gravity is less than on the Earth, right? And so Darrow, the hanged person's loved ones, it's their responsibility. Not their responsibility, but it's like the kind of thing to do. The tradition is that they go and they pull her feet to break the neck, right? And kind of eliminate, make sure she's not suffering, just end the suffering, and make sure she's not in there. So Darrow goes up and does that, and he is just torn. It's this this love of his life, and it's like not new, right? He knew her children, like childhood love. There's a quote that in this first part where it's like, we grew together and now are grown. In her eyes, I see my heart. In her breath, I hear my soul. She is my land. She is my kin, my love. Right. And so just this, everything to him. Yeah. Real, man. I can't imagine. I can't imagine. It's like literally, it just, the book does a really good job. Pierce Brown does a really good job of, I think, communicating just how much Eo means to him. What?
Hey, Pierce Brown, Chris was throwing shade at you before we started recording.
I did not realize that this man was 36 years old, and I just can't fathom that. It pisses me off. This Red Rising came out in like 2014. I think it's like 10 years old. 2014 is when it came out, and so man's just a millionaire author. He's a good looking dude too. He's a good looking dude. Freaking kudos to Pierce Brown. Shout out to Pierce Brown.
Kudos.
Yeah. But yeah, and so Hart, he does a good job of communicating that she's everything to him, and so he's heartbroken. He actually, so after she dies, the custom is you're supposed to leave them up there for everyone to see, right? They did this as an example.
Yep.
But he goes and he takes her down in the middle of the night, and he goes to that place where they were, to that forest, takes her body there, and he buries her. And, and by doing this, he knows that there is going to be, it was so public and everyone is kind of watching this, that he knows that there's going to be some repercussions to his action. He doesn't care. He's signing his own death sentence. He's like, fuck this. I don't have anything else to live for. I'm going to make sure that my wife has a proper burial. Right. And so he gets caught the next day, or leaving the, I don't know if it's the next day or leaving, but
yeah, I can kind of get into the next section. So he has he sneaks out. But a key detail before he hangs, or he gets her off, unhangs her, cuts her down. There we go. Cuts her down. That's what I was trying to look for. Before he cuts her down, he runs into his uncle Neril, and has a conversation with Neril. And Darrow asks if Neril is going to try and stop him, and Neril says, no, I couldn't stop your father, and he was a better man than you, so I'm not going to try and stop you. But he ends up giving him a flask, and when Darrow drinks it, he notes that it was thicker than normal. And right when I was reading it, I knew that...
Thumbs up.
Yeah, I was like, okay, he's going to get poisoned. His death is going to get faked or whatever, blah, blah, blah. So I totally saw all this coming. It was pretty obvious, I think. But yeah, so he ends up getting poisoned or drugged from Uncle Neril. He takes down Io, as you said, and then he gets captured the next day. He gets hung himself. Uncle Neril is the one to pull the legs, and that's pretty much the end of that section.
Yeah, and I mean, so wild, right? Like, one of the things that I love about the book, and everyone says this, right? It's like the pacing, but it's so true. Just because it's like, it just starts off and it's like, we're going, hey, here's this world. Here's this guy, here's this girl that he loves, and like, she dies very quickly. So it just catches your attention. And just like sets you up for the roller coaster that you're gonna go on. Let's go to part 2, man.
I have a bone to pick about pacing.
Why?
Mr. Brown, I have a bone to pick about your pacing, but I will get it'll I agree with part 1 pacing was good. Part 1 pacing was good. I agree with that. But I can't say the same for all of it.
Leaving us on a cliffhanger, man. Let's get into part 2, dude. I mean, we're only 43 minutes in. I think
43 minutes in. Yeah. All right.
We can do 2 parts. We'll see. Fuck it. Maybe we just do the entire book. Like, it's fine.
I definitely don't want to do that.
All right.
I definitely want this to be less, an hour and a half max.
Sure. We'll do 2 parts, and then we'll call it there. So, and this one is short. Like, there's not much that goes into it anyway. So,
yep.
Okay. So
to quickly reference real quick, part 1 Slave is 49 pages. Part 2 is Reborn, which is what we're gonna get into. So the part 2 starts on page 50. Part 3, which is Gold, starts at 138. So part 2 is nearly double the size of part 1.
This is what's beautiful. This is what's beautiful, and how this is free flowing, and it's just a discussion, right? We're just talking. But does it matter how big it is or how long it is?
Just so people want to know, I mean, that's info I like, giving more shape to the book, bro. Is less info better?
Hey, comments. Let us know. Does it matter?
In the comments.
Let us know in the comments. All right. But all right, getting into part 2. So yeah, I'm trying to think of any other just backstory that is important in terms of the entire book or the world. Darrow gets hanged. like Matt said, right? It's like, all right, he's given this weird swill. So yeah, it's like alarm bells are going off. And so of course, Daryl wakes up after his hanging, right? Um, and so his death is so yeah, Daryl, his uncle gave him something that, made him seem like he was dead. Made him, it's like the whole Romeo and Juliet, right? Let's poison ourselves and make it seem like we're dead kind of thing. And so Daryl wakes up. Is he in the grave? It's been a
He's
while
buried.
since I've read the
He's
book.
buried.
He's like buried, right?
Yeah.
And so he like climbs out of the grave, which, claustrophobia, like that would be terrible. I can't. If you wake up in a box, with just pure darkness and you can't move, like I might just have a heart attack.
Is there a way to like test that, like like a safe way to like get buried alive? Because I would be interested in like experiencing that.
Experience, just get
As
buried
long
alive
as
and see
like
if you
as long
can
as there's like
even
safety
climb out.
measures where like maybe there's like a team of people after like 10 minutes, if I can't get out, they dig me out.
For sure. Yeah.
But I would totally do that.
Dude, it's like, okay, there's no, I mean,
It's scary as hell. It's
you're
scary
6
as
foot
hell
below
for
grade.
sure.
Okay, so a couple things, right? You're 6 foot below grade. If there's a lid to the casket or the box or whatever you're in, how do you open that lid when
I don't think
there's
there was a
6 feet
box.
of
Yeah.
there's 6 feet
Yeah,
of,
no, you can't.
soil
No.
above you? Okay, so you're in a hole, right? You're in a ditch, but still, you have 6 foot of soil above you. Like that's heavy. Like
Yeah.
and you can't move. I'm assuming it's just like compacted. And so,
Yeah,
like,
it's very
you
compact.
freaking try wriggling your
Yeah.
wrists.
No.
Yeah, that sounds terrible.
Yeah. It does
Don't
sound
try it,
terrible.
man.
It does
Yeah,
sound terrible,
sounds
but I
terrible.
would try it.
Yeah, I don't know if I would. But yeah, so he wakes up, he digs himself out of the grave, and he meets these two characters called Dancer and Harmony. And so they are a part of this like a terrorist group that we hear of called the Sons of Ares, right? And so bigger picture, right? You've got your classes, but there's like the ruling class, or like there's the society who, there's this whole system, and so it's like you've got Claire Aloon, I think is her name. That could be wrong, but
Are
she
you
is
talking
like
to
the ruler of
Octavia?
everything.
Octavia.
Octavia Aloon.
Alvin.
She is the ruler of everything, all of the like
Mhm.
the entire society across all of the planets, across all of the solar system. And then you've got like your arch governor of Mars, who rules
Mhm.
over all of the planet of Mars, so on and so forth. But the other ones, but these Sons of Ares are like, and so the Reds, they have like a town hall or something, and like on the town hall, I picture like a projector, a screen where they hear about like the news. And
Mhm.
so they just know that there's a group called the Sons of Ares that are trying to do things against the society, right?
Yeah.
And of course, this is the information. It's propaganda, right? So the information that the Reds are being fed is that this is a bad group and they're doing bad things to try and hurt the Reds. And so, the Dancer and Harmony, and they reveal to Darrow, who they are, and they take him to the surface. So they take him
Yeah.
to, go ahead.
Yep. Sorry. Go on.
Yeah. No, and so like you tell him, hey, we're parts of the Sons of Ares. We need to show you the truth, right?
Yeah.
And so he
Okay.
knows part.
Sorry. What I was gonna say. My bad. What I was gonna say though, a key point, a key detail I think is important is before they take him to the surface, they give him a test. Dancer tests Darrow, and he gives him 2 cards, and one of them's a snake, one of them is like a flower or something. But he basically he tests Darrow, and he's like, okay, Darrow, one of these is a snake, one of these is a flower. I can't remember exactly. I'm sure I'm confident I'm wrong about the flower part. I'm sure it was something else. But Darrow, to pass the test, he's like, pick one. If you pick the right one, then we'll take you in. So when Darrow takes the card, he looks at the card and then he eats the card. And then the other card is the bad one. So in that way, Darrow was able to outsmart and outwit like the test. And I thought that was really cool. I thought it was super cool.
All right, hold on. I forget. He eats one card. So they're like, pick a card. He eats one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And then how does that outsmart the thing?
Because basically, I think they were both bad. Both cards were bad. So no matter which card you pick, it's going to not be good. So the only way to win is to think outside the box. And so that was the Darrow's way of thinking outside the box and passing the test, was to, instead of showing Dancer what the actual card was, he looks at it and then he eats it. And now Dancer has no way to say, like, you lost. Because there was only two cards. There was one card which was good, and there was one card which was bad. After Darrow eats the card, the only card that's left is the bad card. So therefore, Darrow wins, like, passes the test.
Man, I need to reread
do
that.
not
I
know
don't
how
follow.
else I can explain this.
I don't follow.
I feel like I explained it pretty well. I won't lie. Comments. Comments.
Comment. Yeah, comment.
Was
yeah,
that explanation
Yes.
adequate,
Let us know.
or am I a madman?
Yeah, I don't understand. I still don't understand how it smarted him. But okay.
It's like in Suits when they're like, "Hey, what do you do if you if someone has a gun to you?" He's like, "You take out another gun, or you eat the gun, or you do a million other things." It's basically, you got to think outside the box. You got to somehow, some way, think outside the box, think creatively, find a creative solution to whatever obstacle. And a constant theme of the book is Darrow finding creative solutions to obstacles.
Yeah, that's very true. Okay, we'll go with it. Sweet. I just don't get it. I don't understand. I need to reread that part.
Okay, it's like
truthfully, I should have reread the book for this. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. No, let's move on.
Yeah. Okay, so he's given the test, right? And they take him to the surface. And so, again, Darrow is, thinks we're years, hundreds of years away from being able to be on the surface of Mars. And so he goes up there, and they almost take him into, like, how, like, you have underground tunnels to buildings. So, like, they take him from where they are, some subterranean place, and just start taking him up, and eventually up into a building. And they go out into, so then they finally open this door, and I picture almost like a conference room surrounded by windows.
Yep.
And you just see a sprawling city, full of people, full of buildings. Everyone is on the surface. You can see the sun. You can see, I think Darrow can see, like, trees and plants in certain areas.
There's people flying around on, like, gravity boots.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. So, yeah. It's like he realizes that everything he's been told his entire life is a lie. And so they're saying, hey, essentially their proposition to Darrow is, if you help us, right, we'll help you not only get revenge for your wife, right, but also help live out her dream of kind of, there's more to life, or there's, this, we're being treated unfairly, and we need to kind of, like, fight to, set this right. Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that's got to be crazy. It's like, it's just like one revelation after the other. First you're discovering, like, the if it's not the surface, like a pseudo surface, like a replica of the surface, seeing the sunrise for the first time, then going out, and okay, so that's already shocking enough. Then realizing that your grandpa's grandpa, it's been 700 years that the low reds, so there's the reds that are subsurface are low reds, and then the ones on the surface are called high reds. in the book, but 700 years of the Low Reds thinking that the actual surface is uninhabitable. So he's carrying the weight of 700 years of an entire race of people, just boom, like that. It's all a lie. It is quite literally, I don't know how else to say it. But Darrow's gonna be pretty mad after this, I imagine.
Yep. Wow. And so their plan is, right? And so Darrow knows about the different colors, right? So he knows about, in the mines, we're introduced to the reds, obviously, the grays, it's like the police class. He knows about golds. I'm assuming he knows about the other colors somehow, some way.
Maybe.
But
it might be possible he doesn't even know about the pinks. I'd have to double check.
No, you're right. Like pinks is one of the ones that I don't think he probably would have. There's no reason for him to know about them, right?
Yeah.
And so their plan is to convert Darrow into a gold, right? And have him infiltrate like the ranks of the society and then essentially like bring it down from the inside. And so yeah, he agrees, he agrees to all this. And so they take him to this, so we find out that there's violets, and they take him to this, they call them carvers, that is going to go ahead and pretty much carve Darrow from a red to a gold, right? And we're talking implanting, like reds are small people.
Yeah.
Golds are these huge, larger than life, like 7 foot tall. I think we get an idea of how tall they are, but they're huge.
7 foot plus at the least.
Yeah. Muscled. They're facially, they're beautiful, right? And so he changes everything. So like his bone graft, skin graft, right? It's like a very, very painful process. And like Darrow is pretty much in this hospital or in this guy's lab for months.
Yeah.
As he's being carved into a gold, right? And so once that happens, and I think even while this is happening, it's very much a physical transformation, and even to the point where so they have like these symbols, like golds have these wings on them. And so like and everything is like tied to their DNA, and it's just like this whole deal. It's pretty cool to see and like read about. But also, the education aspect. And so so as he's being carved, he's also, you've got the pink Mateo, characters that's a pink. His name's Mateo.
Yeah, that's my boy.
Yeah. That's
my
goes
boy.
ahead and he and he teaches him like the culture, the customs, how the golds talk, right? And then who else does he have there helping him out?
So after the carving, then that's when Mateo starts educating him. You have Evie, who's a pink, and she also like nurses him. So I know she was a big part of his recovery after the carving. So I'm pretty sure it was Mateo and Evie doing the heavy lifting post the carving.
Yeah, in terms of getting him to act and be able to like imitate, fit in, blend in with the golds. One thing that's really cool is like that I remember just really enjoying in the book is, it starts off in this very small, it's like, okay, you've got a couple towns, these people in these mines, like literally a small confined space. And then very quickly in the second part, it just like opens up into this expansive, just you see how big this world is, just by hearing about what's going on the surface of Mars, right? And you kind of, it talks about, there's like you were mentioning, there's, various colors, flying around everywhere. It's like truthfully just like this big, larger than life kind of world that Pierce Brown, has created.
That's
And
a
so
that's a really good point. I didn't put too much thought into that, but um yeah, I think that's a really good point to make. How he did that. So yeah, nice.
yeah. Um, and so you start learning more about golds and gold society. And so they introduced the idea of the Institute. And so it's a college for golds. And so like all of so his like first task is to pass this entrance exam to be able to get into the Institute. And so it's why he's studying, I mean, all of the subjects, right? Like history, leadership, like even warfare, like astral warfare, right? He's kind of going through all of this stuff. And so yeah, he ends up they give him another identity, which is an important thing. They kind of find a gold family whose the two parents died, and so they create an identity for him. And like he applies to the Institute. He takes the entrance exam under this identity, and he gets it.
Oh, well, yeah. And then one detail at the exam is he like he steals like a girl's pen. Like or what? Do you remember this? You don't remember, man.
Something about
All
a
right,
pen.
you need to
Something about a
reread the
pen.
book for next week. But
I know.
like in the middle of the exam, it's like it is like one of those just like when the hero just does something evil, like it was pretty evil. Yeah, because like he's like he's getting tested, and then there's like a girl next to him or something taking the test too. And then it's like something about it was some sort of like double layer, like a test within the test. But basically he takes this girl's pen and like she fails because of it. Another gold trying to do the exam.
Interesting.
Yeah,
and
I
she
just thought
can't take it because she doesn't have a pen anymore.
Yeah, it's something like he sabotages her and she fails is the summary.
Gotcha.
But I mean, he was like, "Hey, I need to do what I got to do. Like, I gotta pass this test at all costs by any means necessary." And that continues later on in the book too.
Yeah, yeah. And one thing too, just just thought of is this whole transformation, right? Like super painful, but pretty cool because it's like this whole hero arc, right? It makes it kind of exciting. And so he goes from this like small little guy that's, he's a badass amongst his people.
Yeah.
Right. But like just becomes this larger than life, like character who can, it's like run for miles on end, sprinting, like super strong. Right. And just like, especially for Darrow, right, who always kind of like looked at himself as this kind of badass. It's like I'm sure he was thoroughly enjoying, right, bittersweet, obviously, but like to a certain extent, it's like if you've got these abilities and then all of a sudden and you go through this super painful process of getting them, but it's like once you have them, like fuck, this feels good kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Like at least I would imagine. Right, like just being able to be like that powerful or knowing that type of power, physical power, kind of specifically is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, for sure. Have you ever? Did you watch Arcane?
Arcane? No, I haven't.
Okay.
No.
Are you gonna want? Can I do a minor spoiler?
Dude, spoil it up.
Minor Arcane spoiler. There are season 1. There's a character who's disabled. He like walks with a cane. So he's disabled and he uses cane to walk, but he gets carved. He basic things happen and he gets carved. And there's a really impactful scene where you see him with the cane and then he kind of starts walking a bit faster and then he starts running and then he starts like sprinting like a madman and then he like drops the cane and it's just like exactly kind of what you're talking about. And then also I remember one of the lines in the book was he's like, I can crush a boulder with my bare hands. He's like, it's crazy.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I would definitely feel that way as well. I mean, he's basically a deity. That's what the golds are. In almost every sense, is they're basically deified.
Deified.
Yeah, they're basically deified by the other colors.
Mhm. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so yeah, taking over into the next section is he takes the test, he passes the test, he learns how to ride a horse, but he's not good at it. He runs into Mustang for the first time, I believe, when she's on a horse.
Who's Mustang? Is she what? I mean, I guess what is Mustang?
Okay, a
She's
gold.
just like
Okay, so
another
yeah,
gold, a gold that he runs into,
a
right?
gold, a gold name.
Just trying to lead you there.
I my brain didn't compute for a sec, but we're back on track. Yeah,
No,
so
you're good.
he runs into like a gold. So yeah, now he's starting to run into golds in society. This is before he gets into the institute. So he needs to. Yeah, this is in the educational part of. Oh, or I think he takes the test, and then there's a period of time where he waits for the results. So while
Yeah.
he's waiting for the results, he's just kind of going about day-to-day life, experiencing this whole new world. And then eventually the results come.
It's another thing, man. So like physically, but then also it's like just like a brand new world, like exploring. Okay, like you literally like your entire life is upended. You're stronger. You're now smarter. Obviously, he's studied a ton, but like he's just realized and learned a ton about how big this world is, and then physically like exploring and experiencing riding a horse, and then having money, right? Because he was very
Mm-hmm.
poor.
Yeah.
And now like
Yeah.
the Sons of Ares have given him this, he's got this what's the word I'm looking for? Alter ego, right? Or
Mm.
like this identity. And I mean, for a gold, I
Yeah.
think he's
Yeah.
relatively poor. Like on the scale of golds, the new identity that that he is given, he's lower on the totem pole, but still wealthy, still compared to magnitudes wealthier
Yeah.
compared to where he was before.
It's kind of like I would think of like just like winning the lottery. Like there's no
Yeah.
other just
Yeah, 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 yeah.
like one day you're this life, next day this is your life.
Yeah.
And from the description, they have like a nice penthouse. Okay, question for your podcast. Curse words.
Our podcast,
Yay,
Todd. What are you talking
nay.
about?
This is your podcast.
This is our thing.
Bros
Yeah, dude,
and books.
curse it up.
Okay, curses, yeah. What
Yeah,
are
it's fine.
we can let them
Yeah,
fly?
yeah. We
Okay.
can let him fly.
Yeah, so from the description, they have a nice ass penthouse. Like that's where their headquarters is like a just super nice penthouse where like I'm sure the ceilings are very tall. They have like guest service and stuff like that. So yeah, he's gone through a big changes in every way, physically, economically, biologically, psychologically.
But one thing that he is adamant about, right, when he's talking to Dancer and Harmony, right, who are like his two contacts,
Yeah.
To the Sons of Ares. And I think really the only people that he meets from the Sons of Ares
Yeah.
up until now.
Yeah.
And for a good while.
Yeah.
So he's adamant, right? He's going through this process with them, and they're telling him, who he's going to become, right? And they're teaching him, it's his backstory, right? These were your parents. These were, this is what they did. This is where they lived. But he's adamant about keeping his name, Darrow, and keeping, keeping his name. And even though, everyone was suggesting that he not do that because Darrow is kind of a weird name for a gold.
Yeah,
right?
the different classes have different cultures, so they have different naming structures, naming conventions. and Darrow's definitely a red, would fall into the red pool of names for sure.
Yeah.
And
Uh,
in many instances, when he meets people, especially in this first book, they're like, "Oh, your name's Darrow," and they kind of like think it. They
think
take
it odd.
notes of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And even talking about the different cultures, different ways of speaking, different
Mm-hmm.
like accents, right? It's all English, but just different phrases, uh, colloquialism, slang, different slang.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that is important in the future. So
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. All right. So you were saying, I think you were gonna hit. You were telling us what happens next.
I mean, it basically ends with him getting the results. He ends up passing, and yeah, I mean, it's off to the institute. That's pretty much where everything kicks off. Is
Mhm.
uh is the institute?
Yeah. And so
Is that
they, yeah,
is
yeah.
that
So
in?
it goes into part, yeah, it goes into all the way where he gets the ring, the class ring, right?
Oh
So
snap! Okay, well
yeah,
then,
so he gets
holy.
in, yeah, yeah, big part. Like the big part of what kicks off all of his the future struggles and strife that he goes through. So he gets accepted into the institute, right? Um, and so on his way there, they take like a train or a bus or something
Yeah, it's
like
like a
that.
it's yeah yeah.
Yeah. But he's meeting, so he is, he finds out he's accepted. He has met other golds throughout this process. Like Matt said, he met a gold named Mustang while he was riding horses. And so he meets his classmates that
Hmm.
are some of his classmates that are on their way to the institute. And so so there's one, right, and he kind of gets surprised sometimes because as a previous red, he's only known golds to be rulers, very hard, very, this obviously the gold put his wife to death. So he previously knew nothing about, he didn't know anything, know any golds personally, right?
Yeah,
And so kind of
yeah.
he had this idea that they're all kind of assholes,
Hmm.
for lack of a better term. And
Yeah.
so he ends up meeting, on his way there, he ends up meeting Julie, this character named Julian Albalana, who's like good natured, right? Seems like a
Hmm.
good person. And it's so kind of puts in question, this idea that he had about like they were all kind of terrible people. So he meets Julian. He meets a character named Severo, who's like this small guy, like a kind of like a asshole, just like not even poking fun, but just like, um,
Snot-nosed
well,
brats.
sure, yeah, there you go.
As
They,
I've been called the term a bit myself. It takes one to know one. I approve of you, Severo. I approve.
but yeah, just the guy who's like, he's kind of like a loner, but he puts himself there, right? Because he just
Yeah,
kind of shits on everyone.
yeah,
That kind
yeah.
of a
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
that kind of a deal. And so then they get to the school and there's a draft. And so they are kind of being picked, or there's these different houses. And so there's a house for each of the planets. So he's from Mars, right? But there's like a house Jupiter, house Saturn, so on and so forth. I think, are they all the planet? Are the houses the planets? This is
It's
an
the
important
planets and the
thing.
moons. It's the planets and the moons. So
Okay.
like for example, House Diana I think might be a
Yeah.
moon of Jupiter or
Uh,
Saturn.
yeah.
And like House Ceres I think is like a moon. Uh,
Well, so I think I mean,
it's
so
for
there's
sure
a
the
big,
planets.
yeah, what I'm saying is what I was going to say is like there's a big crossover and a big theme, or not even a theme. Pierce Brown uses like Roman mythology a
Yeah,
lot,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So there's a lot of crossover and their history is the same as ours, right? So they know about the Roman gods. They know they're just like years into the future,
Hmm.
right? But it's our world
Yep.
that has become this class. And so they, if you talk about Ares, right? House Ares, they know Ares is like the god of war, right? And they know these things.
Yeah, like House Apollo.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, no, Ares is the god of fire, right? Apollo is the
Ares
god of
is the god
war.
of war. Apollo is the god. He's a lot of things.
Of the
Yeah,
sun and
yeah.
fire. Yeah,
He's
yeah,
like light. He's like the sun. He's
yeah.
a lot. When I was
Yeah.
in, I think in middle school, I was like all into Greek mythology.
Mhm.
Middle school's been a while back, but but I still know a decent amount.
Yeah, yeah. And so there's the draft, right? And there's the what are the heads of the houses called?
The proctors
The proctors.
slash the I don't know. Because are you talking about
Yeah.
like Finch?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, Finch is
proctors,
the proctor, right? He's like the
proctors.
head of Mars. But it's not the proctors that are picking. It's
It's
like the leaders of society essentially.
yeah,
And
yeah.
this is the theme that you see. Yeah, I mean it's a theme that you see. So like this is in the institute, it's like the best of the golds, the young golds that are going to this institute, right? But you have like the older kind of already established golds, like the ruling class golds. It's like their sons and daughters and like that are going to this institute here. Um,
Hmm.
and they are just meddling, constantly. Like there's favoritism, there's nepotism that's going on.
All the good stuff.
Yeah, yeah. And so it's like, hey, if I am Apollo, right? Like I want so and so to be in my house, right? Or there's just a ton of stuff. So they're having this draft, and then Darrow gets picked for his own house, right? For House Mars. And yeah, you kind of meet the rest of the people that are in House Mars, kind of like almost like Harry Potter sorting
Yeah,
hat kind of
yeah.
thing.
Sorting Hat,
Is
exactly.
yeah, except
There's
there's what 10 houses, 12 houses.
there's like 10, 12 houses. There's
Uh,
I mean, in a lot of the anime I watch, there's always like the squad, like selection exam
Mhm.
type of deal. So yeah.
Yeah, funny. So was looking at like the different influences that Pierce Brown has, and anime is
Mm.
one of them. Like anime and manga,
Oh,
is one
dude.
of the yeah, yeah.
Like a bunch of the moves, I'm like, oh, I know that move. I saw that move.
I've seen this literary tool before, or this literary device used before.
Yeah, like some of the like action sequences. Like there's like there are very iconic like action sequences in anime. So like I have to I can't think of any off the top of my head that like relate to the book. But anyway, cool. I didn't know that he was into anime.
We're all waiting for you to let us know
I
one of these. Let us know. Tell us. I'm just kidding. All right. Okay. And then okay. So he meets everyone that's on his team or in his house,
Mhm.
right? And so you got Julian, who is the nice guy that he met. You got Cassius, who is Julian's twin brother. And then you've got like this guy named Rope. You've got this. Severo ends up being in
Several
House Mars. Severo, amongst others, right? There's others that we'll talk about and find out about. And so, next thing we know here, uh, Darrow is so like they all go to sleep.
Mhm.
Um, and he's like jerked. Yeah, he's just woken up in the middle of the night. There's these colors called obsidians that are like above grays.
Mhm.
They're
Yeah.
almost like they're above grays, like a kind of a special forces, or like if grays are the police, I think obsidians would be like the army, kind of
Yeah.
a kind
Yeah.
of an idea.
Yeah, like the Navy
Um,
SEALs, the like Air Force, like
Mhm.
and also one thing is they're actually physically stronger than golds. This is the only race that is physically stronger than golds, but they're like the barbarian.
Yeah, it's like
Like,
they're like a tribe almost because they got like this
yeah.
weird um religion,
Mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
they're like yeah, they're like kind of like the tribal barbarian race of the
uh,
colors where they are the like if they specialize in one thing, it's like fighting and warfare. Um so so
yeah,
that's kind of
from
their
the
thing.
and all they're bred for, like literally
Yeah.
bred to do this,
Yeah.
right? And so woken up by like a couple obsidians, and they just beat his ass. They lead him to this room, and um, is it? Yeah, yeah, yeah. So the proctor of House Mars, like the head,
Finch. Yeah.
yeah, Fitchner.
It's Finch.
Yeah. So Fitchner
Finchner.
is
I don't know.
Fitchner. Yeah, is so he's the head of House Mars. He's like the leader, what's the
The
faculty?
proctor.
Faculty.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's
He's
faculty.
like
He's the proctor.
yes, yes. And so so he's like thrown into this room, and he sees Fitchner, and Fitchner throws a ring, and it's like a House Mars ring every student has in the middle of the room, and he notices a kid across the room from him, and it's Julian, right? The nice kid that kind of surprised him and made him think, um, yeah, just made him think that, think twice about all gold and, that some were nice or not. And so pretty much he says, hey, only one person walks out wearing this ring and leaves them. And so you can guess what happens, and it's a fight to the death.
It's
One
a fight to the
person,
death.
yeah, yeah. And so, man, I forget the fight, but I know it's like, do you remember
It's
it? You remember details?
see if I knew we were going to be covering part 2 in this recording, I would have been prepared for
Nah.
this. I was
Uh-huh.
I was only prepared to cover part 1, but
Uh,
I know they throw hands and it's just it from what I remember it's described as like a brawl, and at some point like Julian just gets tired, and I think what there's like a decisive blow somewhere where he like headbutts Julian in the like he gives him like a headbutt or something, and it whatever it is, it's just a decisive blow, and it like Darrow was trying to fight, right, but he didn't know that that blow was gonna like kill him. So when he does the decisive blow, he's like in shock that like Julian actually dies, and I mean like
yeah.
he was in it to fight to the death, but yeah, I don't remember exactly, but it was just like some sort of decisive blow, and then Julian just dies
Yeah.
out. He bleeds out on the ground.
Yeah. And the idea, I remember reading it, and it's like the idea that I got was Darrow has been trained, right? Like he is so part of his, obviously transformed into the gold. But like he's gotten a little bit of training, and he's kind of just has this has this killer instinct
Mm-hmm.
about him in him. And so during the fight, I think I just remember like the idea that I got was like Darrow was obviously the better fighter
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
than Julian. Julian was more timid and didn't have that killer instinct. Like Julian was trained, Julian knew how to fight, but
Mm-hmm.
just because he like grew up that way in the family that he grew up in, but it was like a relatively easy deal, other physically in terms of like how well they were matched.
Yeah.
But obviously Darrow did not want to kill anyone, right? But
Mm-hmm.
he knew it was it's either you or me, and it's gonna be me kind of
Yeah.
deal. And so that's where, so yeah, Darrow takes the ring and walks out after killing Julian, and yeah, that's where part 2 ends. The rest of the book is their time in school, and and really the main part. It's a lot of build up until I think part 3, and then part 3 is where the majority of the action and the story kind of reaches its climax.
Yeah.
But yeah,
When we were
yeah,
talking about pacing earlier,
yeah.
part 1, I'll give it B plus, A minus. No, I'll go with B plus pacing for part 1. Again, after those 2 things that I read talking about like Ender's Game, Hunger's Game, like that being the first thing that I read, and those being one of the books that I read on my reading kick, I was already like, okay. But then reading the first line of the book, I was like, okay. Part 2 pacing, I'm gonna give it a B minus. I know the world building and all that, but spoilers, part 3 gold. That's, if you haven't read it, that's when things take off. Or if you have read it, that's when things take off. So like after part 3, I was just like, I couldn't put the book down after that. Once I got into it.
Yeah. Agreed.
I think it's when it hits its stride. That's when the book hits the stride.
Definitely. But I will disagree. And actually part 2, I don't know why. Give me a good training montage. That's the idea that I got from part 2.
Okay.
Right. When they're carving him, he's being carved. It's like, I love a good training montage. I love a good, like, hey, we're going to work our butt off to become better kind of thing.
I gotcha.
So I enjoyed that aspect of it, but yeah, it's like not much happened. Yeah, it was a lot of that. And so, yeah, I could see it definitely catches definitely gets faster. And it's like, yeah, you can't put it down during part 3 because it's, that's
where, that's when we start cooking with the fire.
Yeah, agreed. What else, man? Like, what else is like, just like overall in that, this first kind of half of the book, or, at least parts 1 and 2, that stands out to you that, I'm trying to think of just like the different themes in the book, right? And so it's very much, talking about like
well, the first theme that stands out to me is the theme of breaking the chains, not being content with the status quo. That really resonates with me. So I think that's a major theme. Another one is about like love and family and dealing with loss. Those were the two major things I would say that hit me for the first 2 parts.
Yeah, agreed. One, it's again another one that we touched on and we talked about it, but it's just like kind of raising your status, right? Becoming more, that kind of thing is another big one that was that stood out to me.
Yeah. And like my first guiding principle is dare to endeavor, and the quote is from Henry Thoreau. There is no the unquestionable ability. All right, you go. I'm going to look up this quote. Oh, all right. No. I have this. There's no more encouraging fact than the unquestionable ability of man to elevate his status through conscious endeavor.
Yeah. I love that. What is that from? Is that just a quote of his, or is that from a book?
I have no clue. It's for sure a quote of his. I don't know.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Yeah,
I gotcha. From Thoreau. Okay. Yeah, exactly. I totally agree, right? It's like, hey, man, put your mind to something, you can become better at it. Anything, whatever it is, right? With, even here, because it's like, even here, it's true, because it's like, even when you have all the odds against you, right? Even when it seems like you have no option, you have no, there is no way, no path for you to, like raise your status. Darrow finds a way, right? It kind of found him and was thrust upon him.
Yeah, like it found him, but
yeah.
He continues to find his way afterwards, like
100%. And you see, why it happens. That's a big one. You see why it happens to him. You see why he was chosen for this, right? And so it's like the person that he was as a red, the person, that he is before he is given this crazy body and becomes a gold, and is educated and given this opportunity in the institute, right? It's the person that he was, prior to all that, that kind of opens the door, is the reason why it was chosen.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that a lot. Yeah, I like that a lot. Another big one is sacrifice, right? Just like this idea of everything that he gave up for. I mean, he gave up his family,
Yep.
literally his identity, right? Like,
Yep. Literally
in
left his old
order,
life behind.
yeah. It's like, hey, you are, you're becoming a gold. Your family will never recognize you ever again. And it's like, if they were to, everything is in jeopardy, right? Like if you
Mm-hmm.
go back to your family, you're,
Yep.
you know,
Yeah, they're in
yes,
jeopardy.
yeah,
They are in jeopardy.
it
Like,
is. Yep, yep, yeah. So yeah, those are some of the things that like stood out to me. Yeah, at least in those first two parts.
very cool.
Yeah. What else,
How are we doing
man?
on
Hey,
time?
do we have anything else? We're done time. I'm not worried about time.
I'm worried about time.
Right, we're an hour and a half in. Um, so yeah, it sounds like we've kind of covered everything that that we thought of in the first two.
Yeah, I think that was very solid.
Yeah, sweet. Well, sounds good. There you go. There's parts 1 and 2. There's Matt and Chris's kind of thoughts on parts 1 and 2 of Red Rising.
Bros and
so
books coming
Bros
to
and
you
books. There you
weekly.
go.
Can we commit to weekly?
We can shoot for weekly. For sure, man. I definitely want to keep doing this. This is just fun. Like, okay. So for you, for me, for the audience listening, yes, let's continue to do this. Let's keep it fun. It's a great way for me because it's cool to hear your thoughts on it too, like what you thought.
Yeah.
It's cool for you and I to spend some time together this way. So yeah, I'm totally down to for weekly. Shoot for weekly. But hey, once we start making millions of bucks, in ad revenue, then we'll just have to do it weekly. Maybe we'll do it multiple times a week.
Yeah, we have yet to discuss the business splits. I'm excited for these discussions.
No discussions. You said it was my podcast, bro.
Yeah, I
It was
know.
mine.
I know. I'm gonna want a piece. I'm gonna want a piece of the pie.
Sounds good, man. For now, let's just keep having fun, man. So
Yeah.
sweet dude.
I had a great time. Thanks for having me on. Hopefully when we have an audience, you guys enjoy it as well.
Yeah. Love it. All right, guys. Peace out, Matt. Peace out.
Peace
Have a
out.
good one. Till next time.
All right.
Till next time. Well, we're covering part 3 and 4.
For sure.
Red Rise.
Hey, call me after this, after we end, or I'll hop back in or whatever.
Okay. Sounds good.
Peace.